Welcome back to another episode of The Audible Angle. Don't be confused. This is not Jim Goes Personal. However, it is a one-man show this evening. How is that possible, you might ask? Well, as we know, Herbs is the co-host of the program, longtime co-host of the program. Unable to join us this week. If you listen to the many episodes that have already occurred, you'll know you'll have a better idea what's going on. But sent Irby in for some upgrades. Should be back soon. Wanted to try to stay on schedule with the new long time show. Any show past one episode is a long time show. Irby and I worked on, Tuesday sounds like a doable thing every Tuesday. And then I think we'll get another one in, possibly Thursday hype session, Tuesday rap session. That's with a W. Wrap up the weekend's action on Tuesdays, get pumped for the weekend on Thursdays. I like, maybe in the future, put comments on whatever platform, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, available everywhere. We'll get into some comments we've already gotten, but put comments in there if you have other ideas. Everyone kind of does a live reaction Sunday evening type of shit. And we're going to kind of stray from that, at least initially, because everyone does that. And frankly, we're going to try to do a little more analysis than just raw emotion. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But we'll see how it goes. Subject to change, as always. We did get some feedback that it might be helpful to know when an episode is coming. I encourage you to follow, subscribe, do whatever the thing says. Again, someday we'll have the thing that pops up and says click here to do whatever. Maybe. But turn alerts on. That'll let you know. Although sometimes you might get one posting at 1 a.m., like perhaps in a couple hours from now when I finally get this thing up. In any case, first point of the show, I did cut my hair. I do cut my own hair. This is a throwback to the last episode talking about Matt LaFleur's great hair. Just wanted to show that I also have great hair. Notice I'm not tipping. I already tipped it forward too much. You can see it's getting thin up there. Go back to the hat now. Oh, everybody recognized me again. Didn't take the time to rotate in a new hat. But, unsubscribe if you don't like the repeat hat. Just kidding. Don't unsubscribe. Just leave a hate message. We're okay with that too. Update here. Recently, shortly before kickoff, I became a huge fan of Delaware football. And that's what we have going on in the background, foreground, really, because it's there, not here. And, you might see me get a little distracted or a little pumped or dejected. Obviously, they're going to probably win, I'd say, by 9 points or more, if you know what I mean. 8.5 points. I'm going to kind of jump around. If you've ever watched the other program, you'll know I have a little trouble staying on task, but we have thought about dabbling a little more in the gambling section of life. We're not afraid of point spreads around here. Last thing on technical issues, I am running the audio, the video, the lights, everything myself. Producers are off too. They're with Herbs getting upgrades. So, sue me if my face turns blue when the lights change because I'm just hitting the button on my keyboard. Whoop, there, I brightened them. Didn't mean to do that. Nobody's watching anyway. Mainly listeners. Complaints on the show. Did hear from one longtime listener that, in fact, video is the absolute last thing he ever wants to see from our program. And the last thing he'd ever want to do is watch me and Herbs talk for an hour. I don't really know how to change it up. And I will say, using the tools on here, I didn't even know. I just hit the buttons, don't really look at it much. So sometimes it does some angle switching or view, here's our other camera angle and our other camera angle. It'll switch back and forth who we're viewing. I don't know how to turn on and off the get rid of awkward pauses thing. So maybe it gets a little choppy once in a while. I like a nice awkward pause. If you see me glancing down and to the left, that is at the script. As we all know, this is a scripted show. Every line is scripted. Also got a complaint this week that we fired out some episodes and then didn't do one for a week. Seems like an exaggeration, but hey, we listen to our listeners or watchers and try to appease them. That's why I'm doing an emergency show, to get this out, to appease guys that are sitting by themselves in hotels in Florida drinking beers. Nobody even knows why that listener is there. He just kind of rage texts way more than usual, and he's like, what the hell? 4 episodes, and he did kind of build up his like on each episode and then started rage texting that there wasn't more. That could be sarcasm. He's a hard guy to figure out. Hopefully I'm on the program. I alluded to him as a possible Badger basketball counterpart to discuss with Herbs. If we ever get into that, I don't want to get into it, but it is a co-host situation. So maybe we'll get into Badger hoops at some point, and I'll probably, I might just remove myself from that segment and take a nap or do whatever else. We got, it's all announcements. I always hate when I'm listening to a podcast, of which there are many I listen to, and wait around for the guy to get through the updates. We are working on being the exclusive podcast for a relatively nearby college and working with the athletic director on that. We'll have him on soon. It's going to be big, and we are all Firebirds inside. Get your Pontiacs out of the garage and get ready to rev them up a little bit. What else we got? Big Time Brewery. Some of you can probably guess which one it is, but we got a Big Time Brewery on board. Probably the best brewery that you can imagine ever possibly being involved in a show, which could improve the show, at least on my end. Might be just drinking beers and holding them up for entire episodes, and you can see how it gets better for a while, and then in like the 3rd hour of the show, you could see a little dive in the listenability or watchability on the show. I already talked about the schedule. I'm going to try to stick to it a little bit. And, I'm going to mention some other podcasts from time to time or news media personnel as I think of it. Just don't want to ever be accused of stealing information. I don't think there's a hell of a lot of unique stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff out there. And what I'm going to address has been addressed on some other media outlets, especially local ones. But I do have to just give some thoughts on where Packer Nation is right now. Started with the crescendo. Guys that were in 7th and 8th grade band know what crescendos are. Some other people know what crescendos are. Crescendo! Newsflash, don't block your own face with your hand gestures on videos, but with the big wins early in the season, had us feeling nicey. I don't know if that's as much of a contributing factor as some people seem to think. I just think a lot of fans get a little emotional, and the roller coaster ride, people ride regular roller coasters on purpose for some reason. Not a huge fan. Some people just enjoy the ride. I like to try to keep all 4 wheels on the ground, 2 feet even, one could say. But the general, I'll just give an example. The aforementioned Rod Dillenberg, not even a true fan of the show because he's somewhat technically challenged. Some of the Spotify's on his phone and the kid's phone and is listening to whatever, can't get it on there. I'm going to send him YouTube links. We'll see if he can figure that out. He should be able to, but he literally, and this is not fabricated, called up and was relatively as angry as an emotionalist dude can get about the Packer game. And this is same thing happened after the Cincinnati game, not from my brother, but from other people. But he was like, what the hell is the deal with the offense? Do they just suck, or what are we, is this what we should live with, expect the rest of the year? And I just don't see it that way. I think people need to realize how tough the NFL is. The Cardinals, they lost a bunch of close, wacky games. Not to get redundant, because I think I mentioned that last time, but they're a tough out. Everybody loves the Rams. I think it was the Rams. No, this is a part of the show where, an intelligent guy, if I wasn't trying to operate two keyboards, I'd just bring it up. But I start clicking on the wrong mouse and screw shit up too often that I look down at my phone here. I believe the Cardinals had, I think it was the Rams dead to rights at one point. I know they obviously found ways to lose to a bunch of teams. Nah, shit, that wasn't the Rams. Who gives a shit? We all know they lost games they should have won. So their record was not indicative of their team, really. In any case, you go on the road, you get a win. There were some obvious lacking moments. As far as the offense goes, just about every time this year, outside of the Browns game, thanks for reminding me. And even then, technically, in the Browns game, the offense did respond and put us into position to win the game and got the field goal block. So even that game. So if you thought of the Browns game like I did, then you're an idiot like I am. In any case, the offense has looked good at times and has always been responsive when the pressure came. And in the Cardinals game, countless times in the Cowboys game, as soon as Cincinnati got close, we started responding with drives. So don't freak out about the offense. No matter what happens this week, still don't freak out about it. There's a lot of plays. I don't know the ins and outs of the Packers playbook, but an example is the Romeo Doubs deep ball. I believe it was on fourth down early in the game. That was just a matter of either Doubs or Love. It just was not, they weren't doing the same thing. Doubs didn't, Love threw the ball as if Doubs was going to extend the route up the hash. And if he did that, it was a perfect throw, touchdown. Doubs, I don't know if I'll just say bent. He stemmed. He was gradually, and there was room on that side. He was moving towards the center of the field at the end of his route. And if Love would have saw the same thing and placed the ball as if Doubs was going to kind of fade, it's not really a fade, but he's fading towards the middle, that would have also been a touchdown. So they just did two different things. We don't really know what was correct. It was probably based on what Doubs and Love saw from the safety. It kind of looks like Doubs did the right thing, but we don't know what their route concepts say to do in that situation. He maybe should have extended it straight up the field. Either way, it would have been an open completion either way. So brother was, lamenting, we don't have a deep ball. I'm like, there's tons of statistics that negate that take, just average depth of target, that sort of thing. But even that play, it was a good call. It was a right throw, and it was just a hair off between Doubs and Love. So I'm not worried about the offense, and maybe we'll find out I'm just an optimist. I'm not really that worried about the defense. it was disgusting to see the Bengals. We already covered the Bengals game, and I'm sure you listened, of course, and watched. You probably listen. Remember, if you listen on iTunes with no video, go back to the other platforms and then watch it as many times as you can. The program. And, you know, it's gross to see the Bengals possess the ball all the way down the field. And it's gross to see Arizona move the ball down the field. And it's gross to say this, that there's extenuating circumstances in all three of the last three games. And, if we get another 3 weeks into extenuating circumstances, yeah, everybody can call me an idiot, and maybe I'll figure out that there are bigger problems than I am ready to acknowledge. But Dallas had a near flawless performance from Dak under heavy pressure. The Bengals figured it out. Old Flacco, old quick release Flacco, heavily targeted Chase, which every quarterback in the history of the NFL should do anytime that they're playing football with Jamar Chase. And any team that does not hyper target Jamar Chase is completely insane. So Flacco figured that out. Coverage oftentimes was pretty much there, and amazing plays happened. So we kind of, phase two. I don't want to go into too much hyperbole, but let's just say excellent performances. And sidebar, a little between the sheets here, I couldn't think of the right word. That's why I wanted to avoid hyperbole, because I couldn't think of the hyperbolic word. In any case, we get to the Cardinals, and that was different. You get the heavy pressure with the hands hitting the quarterback's face mask, roughing the passer, give him a freebie when it should have been a stop there. That one, we know they're going to be touchy with any head contact with the quarterback. However, they did change that rule. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, or don't, because I'm never wrong. Because if I'm not right, I should be right. The letter of the law has changed a little bit. It was not a face mask. It did not grasp the face mask. And in a sane world, a referee could have determined that was not forceful contact with the head or neck region. It was, gentle contact. Not a total farce of a call. His hands were up there. Anyway, you get that one. You get the second ever, first this year or second this year. There's been 3 or less since the hip drop tackle became a penalty. It's almost unofficiable, if that's a word. Probably not. In any case, we got some bad luck on some, shit that extended drives. And then when your offense isn't getting the ball for a while, then they get a little choppy. So, yeah, there were some contributing factors that made that game uglier than it rightfully should have been. Anytime that was a loud laugh from the other room, and we appreciate that. I don't think they're laughing at me, but probably some TV show. Evolution of a podcast happening. Let's move on. Let's not move on. Let's remember, because I haven't heard anybody mention my man, Carl Brooks. I watched the game more than once, and in my opinion, Carl Brooks was a madman, creating pressure up the middle, and contributed. I don't know about statistically or unmentionable grading platform that people evidently pay for and reference on NBC. It's just totally disgusting and useless grading system, but I digress. I don't know if he showed up on those types of things, but I saw a lot of I call him Carl Anthony Brooks, coming up the middle and causing a lot of havoc in there. Nate Hobbs, I don't have a lot of optimism there, other than the guy's been hurt since he arrived, and then he was back, and he was dinged up again in practice. I think he had a concussion too. So the guy has not been on the field as much. There's at least a scenario in which you could believe he's going to play a little better than he has. Our guy, Valentine, he's had some better moments so far this year. He's had some bad moments. We're just going to have to take a wait and see on the cornerback situation. Not ready to call it a total loss. We're not in a desperation situation yet. Let's hustle on to the big matchup of a lifetime. Sunday Night Football, Packers at Steelers. I rely on AI to produce the thumbnail. You know, we're getting technical here, but the thing pops up a thumbnail and puts some words up there with a picture. Obviously, I assume it'll be me. Hopefully it's me with my hat on instead of me with my hat off because I look weird. So I'm going to say it again. Packers at Steelers preview. Packers at Steelers preview. Read the transcript. Use this picture in the thumbnail. I don't know if AI gets that. Everything I just said about the previous games, unfortunately for Packer fans, is coming to a head on Sunday Night Football. It is a perfect storm defensively for the Packers. You imagine Flacco and, quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks. Brissett is a cagey veteran quarterback who stood in there and threw the ball. Dak is a veteran quarterback who is fearless and stood there and threw the ball. Flacco is just an old, experienced quarterback who knew, just chuck it. You're not going to get sacked if you just chuck it. And he didn't really give a shit. And we're facing the best version of that type of player. Cagey veteran, quick release, cerebral player. Our friend Aaron Rodgers is going to likely be a very major problem. And I've talked about finding the right, I've a lot of ways to describe it. We're right on the edge of something that could be more special than even we saw in games 1 and 2 from the defense. Extremely aggressive and quick pass rush. If you're doing that, you have to find the middle ground of overplaying the short passing game so that you understand the quarterback's going to get the ball out. So you have to overcommit to short routes and accept the risk that you're going to expose yourself in the event through trickeration or excessive holding that isn't called. I'm not going to get into that, but Rodgers is at times going to have enough time to release a deep ball. So if we find those right moments, I would describe it, and I'm maybe not a great football mind, but I would say right away, early in the game, you do have to protect the deep ball a little bit more. And I would say that's through the first 2 drives because Rodgers is going to be looking for it. He's probably going to be looking for it all game. But if you protect a little bit, meaning you're giving up a little more underneath on the first drive or 2, hopefully you get a stop. Hopefully they can't run the ball. Hopefully Devontae Wyatt is back to slow up that run so it's not 2nd and 4 every time that Rodgers is going to have an opportunity to maybe wait a half beat for a deep route. But early on, you defend that a little bit more. If you stuff the run a little bit, you get a stop or 2. Maybe you get some hits on him. We're going to get hits on him. I don't know if we're going to get many sacks, but we're going to get hits on him. You got to touch him. It's a weird thing to say, but they got to touch him all the time, every play. Don't hit him, don't get late hits, but go touch his arm, pat him on the back. You just keep psychologically letting him know you're right there without drawing a flag. Doesn't even have to be aggressive. Shake his hand, do something. Don't just talk to him. I think that's kind of dumb when guys talk. I'm not a big talker. I can hardly stand my own voice. However, get near him and let him know you're there a lot. Getting into the third or fourth or fifth drives, hopefully you're still in a decent position in a kind of competitive game. Subtly start to squeeze down on those shorter routes, especially if they're sustaining drives. If you start off with the right balance and he's being forced to rely on Freiermuth and Darnell Washington and what's his face who came up, Janu, and dump offs, and we're tackling hard, making the tackle, not allowing extra yard or two on those short routes, we're going to be giving them a hard time already. But if they've sustained some drives, start to clamp down on that, and then again, you're risking the long ball, but we do happen to have Xavier McKinney back there. Rely on him to make up for any aggression underneath. The other bad part of the equation for the Packers defense is DK Metcalf. Much like Rodgers is the perfect version of an old man quick release with more athletic ability remaining in the tank than Flacco, and other guys like Flacco, and even Stafford, although he's just a tough son of a bitch too. But guys like that might be able to pick you apart even if you have a quick pass rush. On top of the Rodgers problem, we have a DK Metcalf problem because he is the exact version of a receiver that can beat you over the top. He can make small corners pay. But let's face you can say that about DK Metcalf in every game. There's ways to disrupt that. Like I said early, you protect against it. You get Rodgers to start to believe that that's not going to be there, because he also doesn't want to throw a pick to Xavier McKinney, although against the Bengals, he did just heave one up to turn the ball over, which was kind of weird and uncharacteristic. Maybe we'll bait him into one of those. All I'm saying is we have what we need defensively to beat the Steelers, and it'll be tough, and DK could be a problem. And frankly, I kind of made fun of the tight ends there. They could be a problem too if we're not tackling. So they're not a extremely dangerous offense, but you can see some things that would make them have the ability to chip away at you consistently and see some of the stuff we've seen the last couple of weeks. When the Packers have the ball, I have a lot more optimism because my fear, and fear is way too strong, my concern about the Steelers defense revolves primarily around, Tomlin in the history of the Steelers defense and playing on shitty Three River Stadium turf or Heinz Field or something with an A field. I can't remember who the sponsor is now. We'll call it Heinz. Everybody else does. There goes the phone to the floor. It concerns me because they're tough. They have edge players that could provide a pass rush. They have Hayward, who is an old tough son of a bitch in the middle. However, Chase Brown and the Bengals just hurt them on the ground, and that comes from a running attack and an offensive line that has been pretty much dog shit the whole year. And Flacco was able to throw enough to keep him off balance, but Chase Brown had his best rushing day of the year. And that's saying a lot because I don't think he hadn't broken 50 yards, almost positive of that. And certainly hadn't had a big day at all in the previous 5 weeks of the season. What the hell week is this? Week 8? Previous 6 weeks of the season. Chase Brown hadn't done anything until he played the Steelers. The Packers' run game, unfortunately, has not been great. Let's face facts, though. We'll be heading into game 3 of having our preferred offensive line together, and they weren't together much. We didn't even know who they were for sure in the offseason and training camp and the preseason. Early in the year, we had injuries all over the place. Shout out to Mike Wall, former Packer great, on the Pack a Day podcast. Be sure to listen or watch that program. He had some good points. Some of it he boils down to, a lot of fundamental things that he is concerned you don't really have time in season to work on as much on footwork and things like that you need to execute what the Packers are asking the linemen to do. So the correction on that is reps, in my opinion, is, naturally in reps, you can do some. You can make small incremental improvements in technique throughout the year. I think natural cohesion with the same starting 5 lends itself to getting better. And then the coaching staff has to do a little better job in what they're asking the linemen to do. Aaron Banks, we don't know much about him. He's just like Hobbs, free agent acquisition, hurt all offseason, hurt all preseason, hurt half the games, at least, I don't know how many he's missed. He's missed all or parts of, I think, 3 games at least. So that's a cohesion problem. They probably don't even know exactly what they can ask him to do all the time. And Jordan Morgan at right guard, he's a tackle. He can probably make a lot of money in the NFL at guard or tackle, a lot of it respective, maybe not a huge contract, but he is likely talented enough to be in the league for 7 or 8 years. And we don't really know exactly what he is and what he can do. He's a young guy without a lot of experience. So maybe you're hoping he can keep improving in small increments and improve the run game that way. Or, change, like I said, and again, credit to Mike Wall, ask them to do different things in the run game. And he, watch him if you want more specifics. Contrary to popular belief, as a 47-year-old fat person, I was actually not a lineman, except in 7th and 8th grade flag football. I was a center, which is barely a lineman. That's basically a tight end. Especially when we ran the center overload all the linemen on one side, throw it to Dilly because he's so fucking good. We got to find a way to get the center the ball. In any case, there's room for improvement there. The ace in the hole, if he is healthy and illness and in calves, is Josh Jacobs has proven last year and in chunks of this year, not as much as last year, but in chunks of this year, that at times it doesn't really matter how good the blocking is for Josh Jacobs. I expect that we're going to feel better about the run game, especially considering the normal Steelers mystique. Although they've been run on this year, their defense isn't as good. I'm not 100% up to speed on their health and all that kind of stuff. Hayward, I believe maybe he had a slow start because he was doing a pseudo hold in, whatever, didn't want to practice, wanted more money. I still expect us to be able to run the ball, and that's going to make everything work better than I already think it has. And I look forward to big game Jordan Love. I'm still a little suspicious on whether or not Christian Watson had to fix the lights there. I'm the technician as well. If Christian Watson will actually be active this game, I think there's a lot of expectations that he will be. However, on a shitty turf field, I assume they replaced the grass. Certainly they have. And it might be literally a game time decision for Watson, or I could see it either way. They might say, you know what, he's either going to play or he's not, and we're not going to do the test the field thing and all that kind of crap. They're just going to, if he's go, he's go. I wouldn't be shocked if he's inactive. It'd be nice to have him in both aspects of the game, as much as I still have optimism for Matthew Golden being a, you know, I don't know if I see superstar top echelon receiver yet. I don't think he's given us much to make us believe that yet, but could be a valuable and often open, reliable weapon in the offense. I don't think he nor Dobbs to much extent is as good as Watson in the run game, which isn't where you typically think of a receiver contributing, but Watson is a bigger bodied, happy to block downfield, and that could pay off in big plays where you might not even see Watson on the screen. But it's a matter of 5 or 6 yards at the end of some runs, that sort of thing. That could be a big help. I don't know if I have a solid prediction yet. The Packers are favored. I find that a little bit interesting on the road. And if I can slip my phone over here and do one of these and check to see what the actual current line is, I believe it was around 3.5. Right around 3. It is at quick check, still 3 points. Oh boy, I think that's a little gaudy. It's a little gaudy, so gaudy that I'm going to take a drink of this light Coke. We'll see if AI edited out that long drink. I don't even know if it's AI. You just hit a button and it says, and sometimes I click it on, sometimes I click it off. Enjoy the pause or don't enjoy the pause, because it'll just sound like a choppy, I was talking and then I was weird noise and then talking again. I'm going to say the Packers are going to win. I think the point spread is most of the predictions I've heard have been, field goal or field goal. I think if things go right, this is kind of a silly thing to say, really about any NFL game, and Delaware is still up 10. Woo! And I think that unless things are going wrong, I do think the Packers are a better team than the Steelers right now. I don't think they're as good as their record. And I would think that I would take the Packers -3, and I would say it could be more of it really could be. I can see a pretty clear path to being up, a disappointing 2-score win is definitely in the cards. That's a weird 9-point, Steelers get a late touchdown, go for 2, whatever. And then we could, however that plays out, where it's, you're worried because it's Rodgers and you're like, well, shit, if they scored here, then all they have to do is get a field goal and they win, that type of game. But I just think that we're getting better. We haven't played that well. The 2 best games we've played have been the 2 biggest games we've played, especially Washington at the time. Again, they were in the NFC Championship game. Jaden Daniels is great. It doesn't look the same now that the Commanders apparently suck. Daniels has been hurt, that sort of thing. So that win doesn't look as well. But at the time, that was a big matchup, a hyped game. This is Sunday Night Football. I don't remember if Dallas was Sunday night. I believe it was Sunday night, not Monday night. That was, we were 2-score favorites there. Apparently we're favored here. I find that line a little weird. Even though I think the Packers will win and have a more potential to win by a little bit of a substantial margin, I still question why they're, favored by what is really, 5 to 6 points if you're, factoring in home field advantage. In any case, that's my preview of the game. That is the Audible Angle official position for the preview version of this game. We'll get Irby back up and running as soon as we can. Tried to reach out to some guest hosts. It's a little sketchy because I just text people at a random time and say, "Hey, you want to do this?" Or I call someone, they don't answer, whatever. Try to get a Packer guy on here to fill in for Herbs if we have to do another one without him. Otherwise, expect there's two possibilities. One more, kind of a general. We like to cover the whole NFC North. I think I might die of boredom if I talk any longer in one stretch by myself. But we could sneak in kind of a general NFC North preview. Of course, we have thoughts on Thursday night football. I better give that now. Vikings at Chargers. Boy, that's a get right game versus a get right game. That one's hard to say because a guy like Joe Alt makes a big difference. Chargers, I don't even know what. I think they're moving him around because their initial tackle got hurt. I think he's at left tackle now. In any case, he's a stud. And if he plays and their third tackle, who is now a starting tackle, he was a little banged up. If they both play, that makes a big difference for the Chargers against aggressive Vikings defense. If you caught Jim Goes Personal, you got Dub C breaking down the Vikings, saying that basically if Van Ginkel plays, their defensive is good. If he doesn't, they suck. I don't think they suck, and I do think they're good. I just think at home, the Chargers, Justin Herbert, Bobby Hebert's nephew, not true at all. Herbert is, he's the ultimate flash, like literal greatness, and with his feet too. And then go into weird lulls where you start to wonder if he's even a good quarterback. I think the Chargers pull it off. They're at home. Vikings still aren't going to have McCarthy. There's still uncertainty. There's uncertainty of what they even do next week. In some Vikings, and this is legit. I watched some the Paul Farrington show, another shout out, and Vikings centric show, and on KFan, even, the big network radio here in Minneapolis weird is, they really don't know what to do. It's almost like they'd rather not have Wentz look good. Of course, they'd probably want to win and have Wentz look bad so they can just clear cut go back to McCarthy. Probably Packer fan, although I saw the ankle roll, so I was one of those guys. But there's a lot of Packer fans that have bought into the conspiracy about McCarthy's ankle, and it was a soft benching and that stuff. I saw the ankle roll. I have sensitive joints, so I believe every joint pull, strain, twist that I see as being a problem. In any case, Chargers win, and it's possible. But it's not clear cut. It's not clear cut. I could see it either going away. If I had to put money on it, which generally I do, I would. That one's like 3 points to 3.5. 3. Let's check. I have a phone. Everybody has a phone. Just look at the frickin' thing. That one is 3.5. Why do I look? I'm always right. Boy. Chargers win, Vikings cover. Ultimate punt. What a wimp. I apologize for anybody disappointed in me not taking a stance. So, possible, especially if I can get a little co-host to jump in. Not sure if Herbs will be ready this week, but get a pump up. Maybe I'll get some readers so I look like Herbs. And then, of course, expect us back probably in the Tuesday range. Again, I think there's a flood of live reactions, and frankly, I like to watch the game a second time, get a better feel for what really happened, pick out some things. I'll make a prediction on myself. I'll probably be pretty even-keeled, whether we win or not. I don't think there's a huge risk, really, for either team, probably. Steelers coming off a loss to the Bungles, and, they're probably still worried about Baltimore coming back to Lamar Jackson. They lose another one. Baltimore wins a couple. They got to play each other some more. they might start feeling the pressure. I don't think there's a scenario where Packer Nation should be, they will be, of course, in dismay and possible self-destruction mode as fans if the Packers lose. But I don't think there's a scenario, barring, injuries and shit like that, where Packer Nation is at risk of melting down completely, regardless of the outcome of this game. I do have to do a couple more shout outs, and I already forgot one, but our friends from Packer Central, give them a listen. A great program. Finally, they got Gar back this week. He was fishing, catching muskies. Sorry. Update. No muskies, just northern pike. So it was a little disappointing. Shit, I'd like to catch any fish. Shout out to them, but they are going to be, Schmitty and Griff are going to Pittsburgh, flying in there. They are not going to the Bootney's restaurant I went to in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, years ago. Great food, great time, great meditation music on repeat the entire time I was there, which was, hour and a half. Did have a couple barley pops while I was there as well. They're going to be there, and I'm giving a shout out to Packer Central, but of all the all-time dropped passes in the history of podcasting, they didn't even bring up one of their hosts or part of the group they're going with, the great and wonderful Louis Lips. Any football fan of any age should know who Louis Lips is. I don't believe, I could check my phone again, but whatever. I don't think he's Hall of Fame. He did overlap with Ahmad Rashad, I believe. Shit. Am I saying? In any case, I believe he's like whatever they have, Steeler Ring of Honor or that type. He was a Pro Bowl, great player. Louis Lips, shout out, Schmitty and Griff, as I know your listeners. If you do not get Louis Lips pictures and preferably old school stories of playing with old Steeler Nation, and maybe a Chuck Noll tidbit in there, you should face eternal damnation. I'm not wishing that upon you. I'm just letting you know it's a real possibility. Look forward to seeing everybody soon. I actually can't see you. That'd be weird if I could, and I'd probably stop the show a lot sooner, knowing some of you. We'll be back.